Welcome to One Man's Tracks, the second-hand music channel. I guess I've decided to spend this entire month challenging myself to summarize these bands that defy conventional definition. Like, for example, Animal Collective, this band that's categorized as a experimental pop group, and it's a reasonable place to start with a band, but heck, even calling them a band isn't the best way to begin starting off talking about this collective. It's made up of 4 members. You've got David Portner as lead vocalist and main songwriter, Noah Lennox as percussionist, backup vocals, Josh Dibb on guitars, and just sound manipulator master Brian Waits on all sorts of fun electronic goodies, as well as a hunky-dory. They're better known as Avey Tare, Panda Bear, Deakin, and Geologist, and they're the 4 members that make up the Animal Collective, but any project that contains 2 or more of these members is technically considered an Animal Collective album or project, whatever it is. There's a few exceptions here and there, but it's cool to see how they get a little back catalog due to a few of these members working together until all 4 of them finally got together in 2003. It's a bit of a complicated web. They do all sorts of interesting stuff genre-wise. We're going to get into it right now. Hopefully I haven't already wasted all the time with this intro. It's Animal Collective Day. Woo! Animal Collective, officially formed in Baltimore in 2003, was when this quartet finally came together for their Here Comes the Indian release, now known as ARC. It's actually the 4th album in the Animal Collective catalog, with Avian Panda's Spirit They've Gone, Spirit They've Vanished, 2000 release, as well as their collaborative album with Geologist, Dans Manatee, and their collaborative album with Deakin in 2003, Campfire Songs, being retroactively placed into the Animal Collective catalog. And so, right out the gates, 2003, you've got 4 Animal Collective albums coming at you. As a new fan, after I find that first thrift shop pickup, I tend to devour an artist's catalog chronologically, but when it comes to Animal Collective, I don't know if that was the optimal strategy to introduce myself to them. Their early stuff, sort of outside of the really kind of dreary Campfire Songs, is this lo-fi, rather abrasive and somewhat incohesive mix that would really turn off a casual music fan pretty quickly, I think. Luckily, I've spent the last week just listening to Mr. Bungle, so I was more than prepared. That early onslaught is still something I've yet to properly wrap my ears around, and I do look forward to giving it some more time, but for now, I'm going to be sticking with the more smoother textured stuff, simmering with their projects they've released since, like Noah and Dave's 2004 Sung Tongs. So that's 6 studio albums, 5 live albums, 10 EPs, 2 visual albums as of February 2022, plenty of material, and I was lucky enough to have this as my second-hand starting point. Their 6th album, this one's released through Fat Cat Records in October of 2005. Their 2nd album as a full foursome. This is Animal Collective's Feels. This self-produced cinematic CD brings their creative, psychedelic, indie freak folk closer to the mainstream with dynamic, catchy verses, deep melodic passages, and euphoric punctuations. As clear and free as ever, this is a spectacular pick-me-up album that takes me higher with each and every listen. For 9 tracks and just over 50 minutes, this mesmerizing musical mosaic transports me away from the day-to-day shuffle and uplifts my heavy head and heart. Its instinctive delivery and unique tones have me up on my feet and along for the entire ride. So, if you'll oblige me, I'm going to be taking a few minutes now and talking about these tracks and the frenzy of feels that they evoke. Starting out with the smile-inducing opener, Did You See the Words? Kicking off with a bang, this is possibly my favorite song on the album. It tells a tale of a blossoming relationship. It's old as time, but told in a way unlike I've ever heard it. It's so blissful and free. Did you see the words is just the reverberating highs and lows of falling in love performed with uninhibited enthusiasm. It's just incredible. The follow-up, Grass, is the lead single off the album, and another fantastic example of the band's ability to make the pop landscape more interesting. Ambient, explosive, electronic folk rock that's sort of reminiscent of MGMT, that feels like a fireworks show on a warm evening. The best named song, Flesh Canoe, is the next one up. It's close up and hazy. This slower, more vulnerable cut seems to be about opening up and building trust within a relationship. It gives the listener a chance to take a reflective breath before picking things back up for the next sensational song, The Purple Bottle. This one's more shinzy, quicker, catchy, harmonic indie rock that's just beautiful. Once more, like finding an exciting new love. It's wonderfully playful, moving, and invigorating. Now for another atmospheric step back on the song Bees. It's got these great guiding strings that make this track hit like a lazy summer day, reminding me to take my time, the keys gently tickling like sweat dripping down a forehead. It is just so calming and with such a matter-of-fact presentation that brings me back to just reflect on the basics. Their non-traditional song structures are perfect for an album context, but ultimately, nearly every track here takes the listener down fresh and interesting paths that just stand alone as the fantastic songs they are. Like with the Banshees beat, for example, it softly stirs you from that resting, tranquil state that you were left with Bees, which really means this song could start up anywhere. It hits you with more reverberating strings, bringing you up onto your feet. It might be the song that usurps Did You See the Words as my favorite song on this album. It takes nearly half of its over 8-minute runtime to build up to its absolutely undeniable hook. This gorgeously innocent feeling arc with a song that is about infidelity. I really just cannot get enough of this track. Daffy Duck gets his own AnCo song, rotating back to the peaceful, calming vibes of Bees. There's this emotional swell that builds to a full, distorted little crescendo here, but it settles back down into some more droning ambience and Avey's cryptic, complimentary vocal musings. This one takes its time, and the way it settles makes me start to worry that it's the closing track, and even after a number of listens here, I kind of start to get bummed out that it's over before it's even over. It isn't though, so we move on to the chimes of this album's second to last, Loch Raven. It is a bit of a nothing track that sort of just floats around, kind of like you'd fallen asleep at the end of Daffy Duck, and you're just kind of carelessly drifting through the clouds, floating you on to the closer, which is a far more spectacular send-off. Turn into something really rolls the credits here with some flashy, playful, theatrical tones and moving melodies that then turns into something a little more overblown, raw, this ethereal yet tender ambient pile that somehow finds its way to conclude this definitive electronic psych pop masterpiece. It just feels so good. It delivers its heartfelt message with a ton of boyish charm and sonic exuberance. If it's too short for you, and even at its over 50-minute runtime, it certainly is. There's an associated EP called People that you ought to check out, as well as some versions of this also have live versions of some of the songs tacked on at the end. I'm not entirely sure, but you don't need to be lucky and find the right copy, because I've got it all linked down below for your listening pleasure, as well as all the other albums I've talked about today. From this, the band continued their upward commercial trajectory with releases like Strawberry Jam and Merryweather Post Pavilion, their best-selling album. I found that Centipede Hurts was a tad underwhelming upon first listen, but I'm sure it's gonna grow on me because I really love when all four of these guys come together on an album, and that's one of the reasons I love their latest album, their February 2022 release. What's the album called? Time Skiffs. That's what it is. Brand new. I just heard it, and so I haven't fully formulated an opinion, but I think it's a pretty solid album. The lead single, I can't remember the name of it, it's a top track, and the opening and closing tracks really bring the album together and make it have that real strong Animal Collective feeling. Great album. Highly recommend you check it out. And all the other albums in between. I think they're on studio album 11 now. These guys are pretty prolific. I didn't really mean to skip past Painting With or Tangerine Reef. They're just a few albums that I haven't totally wrapped my ears around. I really did enjoy the audio-visual experience, the kind of violent and chaotic and terrifying odd sack. That was pretty spectacular, I think. Just overall kind of brought that early Animal Collective sound, new meaning with the visual component there, the horrific movie thingy that they created. Really cool. And then the visuals for Tangerine Reef are this beautiful psychedelic underwater plant life. It's really gorgeous, but I just can kind of only remember the mood it left me with. These guys have a knack for crafting textured mixes that fit certain specific moods and then building projects around those moods, and with each new project trying out a different tone, different texture, different kind of sonic landscape, and really stretching out and getting their instinctual animalistic flavors all over it. I love that they basically created a project for nearly every month of the year and every change that a year brings. I'd love for you to tell me your thoughts on Feels and Animal Collective in general down in the comments below. Tell me about a time you got to see them live, your personal favorite Animal Collective album, and just a AnCo meme. Throw it all down there. You've got some hilarious and self-aware fans. This is a great group. I'd love for you to check out these two groups that I think you'd enjoy. Leave a like if you made it this far in the video. Subscribe for next week's throwback album retrospective. And I doubt I'm going to find it, but I'm going to go try to find a swimming pool.